I'm just. Welcome to Love and Live Abundantly. I'm Ilona.
I'm Bill. Do you want to love more effectively?
Do you want to live fully and love more courageously?
We talk about what all that means.
And how you can achieve it.
Join us.
Well, hello and welcome.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Ilona. Good to see you again.
Yeah. I try to pretend that I'm more tech savvy than I really am.
Well, to bring everybody else on board so that it doesn't sound like we're just babbling here. We've been late to the game when it comes to tech stuff, and we have a really steep learning curve, and right now we're trying to figure out how to do an intro, and we're trying to play with some things. So in the coming episodes, you're going to see different kinds of images and different kinds of approaches to us starting up and even ending one of these sessions. But I hope you'll be patient with us. We're trying to be patient with each other.
Yes. Yes, it's definitely we're trying different things. We're not going to give up, and we want it to be the best for all of you as well.
Well, full disclosure, excuse me, but if you will look at the bottom of your screen on the right-hand side, there's a button down there that you can push that gets rid of that clock on your screen.
Is that me?
Yeah.
Because it's backwards. So why don't I just close it? It's still there though. What do I have to?
Show timer to all, it says. Do you see it on the bottom of your screen? See, isn't this great the way we're including our listeners into our foolishness?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know why it's there.
I don't think the world is an awful place if that stays up there. So
yeah,
maybe it won't be there the next time we come on air.
It's something that I did.
I don't know. I don't know how it got up there.
Oh, either. All right. Well, let's get to it.
Very well.
Well, you know what I think it is? I think it's the show timer to all.
Okay. We'll have to find another way to use the timer, I think, but that's enough. We'll make sure that we stay at about a half hour for this one. Anyway, enough of that foolishness aside. Before we came on the air today, we were chatting about what we should and could and maybe ought to want to talk about, and I think Ilona thinks it would be a good idea if we revisited some of our kind of the core base notions that set us forth on this journey together. And one of those is the role of early life experiences, particularly traumatic experiences in development and becoming the person that you are today. And whatever role that might play in understanding those in being a better person today. Did I summarize that okay?
Yeah, well, so I would rephrase it as, not being a victim to the trauma that you've experienced. I feel like it's our perspective on things, right? We can either have a victim mindset to it or a responsible mindset to it. And I'm not trying to lessen, the trauma that people have experienced, but it's like, okay, what can I learn from this and how can I be different? Or what can I do differently? Right? I think a great example is, people who become parents. Oh, I don't want to be like my parents, right? And then all of a sudden, they're speaking words of their parents, or they're, disciplining their kids like their parents. And so, to take those experiences and use them as something positive and not where it's a detriment to yourself.
Yeah, I had that experience right after my daughter was born, not after, right after, but when she was about 2 years old, I found myself scolding her. And she needed it, but I found myself scolding her, and I thought, oh my God, I sound like my grandfather. Oh my God. And then I thought, oh geez, I really sound like my mother. And then I realized it's kind of our family pattern is to scold. That was our pattern for scolding. Um, and I don't think my scolding her was traumatic, and that I did just change the subject there, uh, but that leads me into what I really wanted to say, and that is how many, I can't tell you the number of times that I've heard people saying, I don't want to ever do that, or I don't want to be like my father or my mother, or I don't want to be that person, or I don't want to be a victim again. I don't want, there's all kinds of things people say they don't want to be. And that's not enough, is it?
No, I don't, I feel that if anything, it really, if you keep in that mindset of, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like, that's what's gonna continuously show up.
In
Because you
in the
concentrate,
I'm sorry.
keep concentrating on that and you keep thinking about it, that what you think you create. And so if you keep thinking, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like that, I don't want to be like that, the universe doesn't necessarily understand the don't wanna, right? Um, and then, that person shows up in different people. Does
Well,
that make?
the nature of going back to high school physics, nature abhors a vacuum. And if you say, I'm just going to take this out of my repertoire, that I'm never going to act like that, I'm not going to be that person, I'm not going to. Well, when it comes time for you to be something, if you haven't figured out what you're going to be instead, like you said, you're going to end up being what you thought you weren't going to be like. Excuse me. There's also a thing that happens in addiction recovery programs, and that is that one of the things that we notice in addiction recovery programs is that part of the illness is people obsessing about drink or drugs, obsessing. My whole organizing principle, that's my life. It's organized around when I will use, if I will use, what I will use, what I can do to get out of doing this other thing so I can use earlier. It's all that kind of thought process. And a lot of the reasons that people try and fail to stop using is that they do what you said, and that is they start to obsess just as bad about not using as they used to obsess about using. But it's still obsessing about using. So of course, so why should we be surprised that since it's the flip side of the same coin, when what we need to do is to get other coins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
And
know,
that's what happens in trauma, right?
yes, yes. And when I had this leg experience, my broken leg experience, for the first few weeks of it, my brain necessarily wasn't able to, um, like I used to wake up every morning and listen to my meditation and, journal I am grateful statements. And, I had a certain routine, but I wasn't able to do that right after my broken leg. And so I was kind of gentle with myself and not doing that. And then I created something new where, I do my meditation. I started listening to somebody totally different, who was just a little bit more softer and kinder, and I felt like more motherly. But then I also started listening to music, um, high energy music that was, I'm grateful. So then throughout my day, I would be singing, I'm grateful, because I was listening to that music, and it was what the last thing was in my brain that I was listening to. And so I would remember it then throughout the day. You know how you hear a song title, and then all of a sudden you got that song in your head and you singing it all the rest of the day. Have you ever done that?
So I do know that. Yes. Happens
Okay,
up
so
to me all the time.
exactly. So that's what happened with me. However, all of the songs were positive songs. They were empowering songs. So throughout the day, I would be singing them in my head instead of that negative mindset, or focusing on my broken leg. It was, I am wealthy, healthy, happy, loved, and rich. That's one of the songs. But, just, and it just stuck in my head. And it really, made a difference than that negative talk, or focusing on, how much pain I was in, or the fact that I couldn't walk, or, I couldn't do anything and I was homebound, and, all of those negative things I could have thought about. But instead, I switched it up for the more positive, upbeat, and empowering music, which made a difference in my day.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard a better example of what I was saying, and that is that you could have gone through the day. You could have spent the entire day feeling down, feeling blue, feeling anxious, feeling depressed, and saying to yourself, I don't want to feel anxious or angry or depressed. You could have done that all day long.
Mhm.
Or you could have said, well, if I don't want to feel that way, how do I want to feel? And then you made a conscious decision that there was another way to feel. It didn't get rid of your hurty leg at all. And it sure didn't undo the disastrous accident from the skating, uh, from skating. But you decided, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to do that negative thing. I'm going to do this instead. And the instead was kind of goofy and seems kind of lighthearted, but it was really consistent with the mood you wanted to have,
Absolutely.
and it worked. And that speaks to what I used to do in my business and what I think successful people in my business do, and that is to say, well, it's not just enough to say you're not going to be a certain way. You have to decide what the other way is going to be and what that looks like. And otherwise, how are you going to know if you got there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I'm healthy. How do you know? Because I'm not unhealthy. Well, that's no. What does healthy look like? And you decided that, didn't you?
I did. I did decide that. And again, it wasn't, I feel like this roller skating broken leg experience
I'm sorry. I
really,
shouldn't be laughing about that.
yeah, yeah.
It wasn't fun.
It really gave me a different perspective on things, because, some of my friends would be like, well, just do it, just do it, just do it, just do it. You know what you need to do. And I'm like, yes, I do. However, like, my brain is just not able to comprehend that right now. From, I don't know, from hitting my head on the floor, or just the whole experience of trauma. But whatever it was, I was not prepared, and I don't feel like the outcome was supposed to keep doing what I was doing. I felt like that experience was for me to look at things differently in my life. For me to have a different perspective on things and to, perhaps make some other choices for myself. Some better choices for myself. And so, of course, during that time, I didn't necessarily looking at it. So I'm looking back at it now, right? And that, what can I do differently to create the life that I want?
Mm.
And, now there's even some songs that I listen to and I'm just like, oh, I can't even listen to them anymore. They like hurt my brain. And they're not necessarily positive songs. So why do I want to listen to them?
I
Right?
don't know. I don't know why I I'm not sure there's an answer to that question. Do you have an answer to that question? Why would you want to keep listening to a song that wasn't consistent with the way you want to be? Why do you think that happens?
Well, because I just wasn't feeling it. I was in a different place, in a different space and a different mindset. And so to be able to listen to those positive songs, those empowering songs, felt much better than, you know, than the negative ones.
Yeah, there's there I think there are three forces at play here in what you did for yourself. One is that you displaced the unwanted behavior, which was this train of thinking that was so negative and so depressed, and you consciously pushed it out with that aggravating, irritating thing that happens to us where we get a song stuck in our heads and we can't get rid of it. But you chose a healing song. So there was that dynamic. Another dynamic that blew me away a few years back. Well, I'm older than I look, so call it a lot of years back. But there was this really great research that around depression that showed that music is very helpful in getting people out of depression.
Yeah.
And in fact, uh, there was a grad student somewhere out west who thought, well, it must be important what kind of music. Right? And the research showed that it didn't matter what kind of music. I mean, there were people who were playing rap, there were people who were playing sad songs, there were people playing happy songs, there were people playing calliopes. It didn't matter as long as it was a music that the person thought, believed, felt was going to shift their mood, and it did. And there have been studies since where we do PET scans and we look at what happens to the brain when music happens. But music itself, just the music itself that you chose for yourself, uh, even if it wasn't designed to displace the bad feelings, we know was going to make you feel better. I Little self-disclosure. Um, I found when I was younger that yeah, I played around with the guitar and I used to hum and strum and have some fun, and I did it for myself. But I found that when I was feeling a little bit depressed or down or scared or anxious, that there was what I came to call my depression set. I would play these songs for myself and sing them and play them. And now as I look back on it, I think it's almost paradoxical that the music that I played was they were pretty depressing songs. One of them was called "One Dying and a Burying." That's you wouldn't think that a person who was a little bit depressed ought to be singing that, but it's interesting that I'd go through this 5 or 6 songs that were just terribly depressed, sad things, country things, where my dog died and he stole my truck and my life left me and my barn burned down. But then I wouldn't be depressed anymore. And as paradoxical as that sounds, once I saw that research that said that it's music that gets you out of it, and it doesn't matter what the music is, as long as it's the music you pick to get you out of it, that it's not magic, it's stuff in your head.
So what do you think that it was? Do you think that you didn't feel alone, that what you were depressed about wasn't so bad because here's this guy singing about all of his lows, and you were like, hey, well, my life isn't so bad. This guy's got it worse or same or.
No, I don't think it was that complicated. I really do think that it was intentionality. I saw myself as doing something to stop being depressed, and that my seeing myself that way as being more proactive. That was one thing. And the other thing was just music. And again, it doesn't matter what the songs were or particularly what the messages were. They're just, why
See,
now I'm remembering all the songs.
for me, it was more specific because there was just some music that there was too much going on, or it was too intense. Like even some of the meditations that I was listening to that were a little bit more intense, my brain wasn't able to comprehend them.
Hmm.
It just didn't feel right. If anything, it made me feel more anxious.
Ah.
So,
So that brings me back to what's important is what you select
yeah,
and what you know about you.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know that people talk to you a lot about because you're into trauma and you're into people reversing the negative effects of trauma they have in their daily lives today. Um, so where do you start with something like that? I mean, I know that was part of your journey. Where do you start? Do you have to say, gee, I wonder why I don't do well in these kind of circumstances? Or do you start with, is there something in my life that looks similar to what I'm doing right now that was as equally screwed up? Or, I mean, where does that moment of awareness come from? Where does it start?
Well, I think it's up to each individual on whether or not they want to create different results and if they're willing to do some things differently. And I think that there are just some people that want to do things differently to create the life that they want, and then there are some that do not. They don't want to pull back that Band-Aid of trauma that they've experienced. They want to create different results without having to think about or heal what they've gone through. For me, it was, I was just very open to learning new things. I had no idea the ways I was holding myself back. And, how I was handling things was actually me protecting myself, like as my trauma response. So I knew there was an awareness within me that, okay, if I want to achieve the things that I want in life, then I get to do some things differently.
Okay, but I wonder if there aren't people who are in that same kind of place and then don't take a first step. that they are aware that things aren't working for them and that they're in pain, or that they're being dysfunctional in some way. But that's not enough, because I mean everybody knows they hurt, or many people know they hurt. Some people have just become so accustomed to it, but you know you hurt. So what's the next step? What was the first step to walking away from that, to walking through that? Or what's the old saying, if you're going through hell, keep on going, right?
Yeah, I mean, are you
So what,
asking
yeah,
personally?
what is it? Well, for most folks, what is it? I
Well,
assume whatever yours was would be kind of common.
for me, it was learning tools. It was learning, different ways to handle things. And and then it was healing. It was healing the trauma. It was, having a different perspective. It was doing different exercises where I got to process the trauma a little bit differently.
So that's the process. What was the trigger? I mean, there must have come a point where you stop being stuck. What unstuck you? Yeah, that's not good grammar, but there it is.
So what unstuck me?
Yeah,
Getting out of my head
yeah.
and
What
coming.
got you out of your head? What unstuck you? Was it another crisis? Was it were you sick and tired of being sick and tired, or what?
Yeah, I think I was tired of the struggle. I was tired of struggling. I was tired of, not making enough money, not having great friendships, not having a good partnership. Um, and not feeling inner peace.
So
And
it was that awareness.
yeah, and I think too, realizing that I didn't create very good boundaries for myself.
Hmm. Okay. So there's an awareness that things aren't going right for me, and I got to do something. It's interesting that that's so wholesome, I think. I mean, I know you're not gonna understand this exact. Maybe it's hard to understand. Maybe it's hard to explain. But it seems to me that it would be easier to stay stuck than to decide. Okay, I'm stuck. This ain't working. I'm going to try something else.
Not for me.
Not for you. And I think that's remarkable.
Yeah.
So
And
what? So how did you know where to reach out to and how to do that?
I didn't. Somebody had recommended that I watch The Secret, which a DVD. Back then when we used to watch DVDs, I watched The Secret and I learned about the law of attraction and what we think we create and all of these different
Mm,
things. And then it led me to connect to some people who oh no, so what I did was all the people that were in The Secret, I started watching them on YouTube. And I started listening to their videos and I wrote down every single author or presenter that was in there and researched them even more and just started listening and was like, oh wow, I can change my life if I change my thoughts and if I am open to this. And then, I was invited to a T. Harv Eckert seminar. He did Millionaire Mind, and he talked about our money programs and how that when we're a kid, we're subject of our parents' environment, and so my father would fight with my mom about money. He didn't want to give us $35 a month for child support. And so what stories did I make up about myself from that, right? That I wasn't worth $35 and that money doesn't come easily and that you got to fight for money. And so, all of those things that I had made up from that, I learned in this, seminar years later, and then I could change my thoughts and I could change my reality. And so then it was like, oh my goodness, I was just so open to learning more. And then I got involved in other seminars where I learned different personal and professional development, where we would do exercises for healing, different way to process our emotions and the things that we experienced. Even, climbing up a 40-foot pole. It was something that I had said in the beginning, oh, I'm a New Yorker. Like, they think I'm gonna climb up that pole. I'm not climbing up the pole. I'm a New Yorker. And then that has been a life changer for me. So we not only uncovered the negative, but then they gave us positive things where what we were physically doing to take place of the negative, right? So here I am in the beginning thinking, oh, I'm not going to go up that pole. I'm too cool. I'm a New Yorker. However, at the end of the day, the way that they set it up was the pole was about commitment. And so what was I committed to? And so I didn't I didn't stand on top of the pole. I was just there holding the edges, and I had like 80 people surrounding me, chanting my name, telling me that I could do it, that, just to keep going, and, the whole shebang. And then I did it. And then when I got up there and I looked around, it was beautiful. And so it was all the people supporting me, right? I think that was a big thing for me, to have all those people supporting me. And then, what am I really committed to, and what am I going to let get in my way, and for what reasons? And then once I push through my fear, then the view is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Right. So doing things like that, then I just became more and more open and, took more and more classes, and then started teaching the classes, and then, doing my own thing. So I was open to it, and I had seen and researched other things that led me more and more on the journey of self-healing.
Can I summarize, or can I try? At some point, you got sick and tired of being sick and tired. Just enough already. I don't know what to do about it, but enough already. I got to do something else. And so you started casting about pretty diligently. You kept at it. And then finally, at some point, there was a revelation. At some point, there was, I'm not seeking anymore. I've got a thread. I'm going to start pulling on that thread, and which led me to another thread, which led me to another thread. And this, it was purposeful. It was thoughtful. And you worked hard. And the other thing that I have to recognize is that you didn't wallow in your trauma. You went to these events, you did the readings, you did the stuff, you did the work. That was learning how to be positive, how to be growthful, how to do something other than what you had been doing. But you kept working at it. Yeah. Yeah. And you did what they do in self-help programs. As soon as you figured you had some of it, you decided to give it away.
Yes.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If I can get myself through it, then I know that other people can get themselves through it if they choose.
Hmm.
And I had realized, and I was tired of other people's stuff being my stuff. I use a
Stuff.
different word than stuff, but we won't because we're on the air. Yeah. So we'll keep it PG, so I don't have to click the box saying that it's explicit content. Yeah, I was tired of other people's crap being mine.
Yeah.
And I knew that there had to be something else out there. And I knew that I got to make some different choices to create the life that I wanted.
Cool. Uh, for the benefit of folks listening, one of us was supposed to be watching the time to see how we were doing, and I don't know where we are. Do you?
I think we're probably around time.
Are we really? Okay. Because I had a timer going on and it kept getting wonky, so I had to turn it off, and then I wasn't smart enough to remember to think of what time it was.
Well, on that note, so
Okay.
we can continue on this on our next session.
Say a sentence that says what we're going to continue on. Process of change. Um, Getting unstuck
Yeah, and I think solutions keeps popping in my head.
and solutions. Well, I wrote those words down in a very old-fashioned sort of way using one of these. And
Let's see if you can find the piece of paper the next time.
well, yeah, that is a problem because I was going to say, well, that won't be a problem because I never unclutter my desk, but that really is the reason I might not be able to find it next time. Yeah. Well,
Well,
this was a good talk. I really enjoyed this time.
yes, of course, as always, as
Yeah.
always. And thank you for joining us. And we will see you next Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. Bye now.
Take care.